Welcome listeners and viewers far and wide from the Great Barrier Reef to the Great Lawn. I'm Eirik Gislason, Associate Broker and Team Leader of the Excelsior team at Brown Harris Stevens, Master Certified Negotiation Expert and Instructor, founder of Archway Partners Coaching, and your host of Shear Line Negotiation Mastery, the podcast bound and determined to reclaim and restore the good name of negotiation and unlock the door to value creation, win-win solutions, and the true power of integrative negotiation. Now, today, we are going international. We're going to look at real estate negotiating through the lens of another market entirely, Australia. Now, at first glance, it's easy to focus on the differences, and it makes for incredibly interesting conversations around real estate, as you're about to see. The rules are different, procedures are different, there's different access and visibility when it comes to data, and while some buyers do have representation, there are differences there as well. And don't get me started talking about auctions. All right, do get me started talking about auctions, because we're going to talk about that as well. Why don't we see them more in our market when they're a regular occurrence in theirs? Well, all of those differences matter in practice, but they interest us on Shearline because there's some really juicy negotiation fruit we can pluck out of the proverbial gum tree. Now, although I don't recommend humans eating fruit from a gum tree, but that's not the point. The point is, negotiation does not happen in a vacuum. It happens inside a system. The rules of that system shape power, behavior, urgency, expectations, pressure, and the way people interpret information. But here's what I find so interesting. Even when the systems are different, the people are still just people. Buyers in New York, Sydney, Chicago, Brisbane, or anywhere else are still wrestling with many of the same human questions. Am I overpaying? Do I have enough information? Can I trust what I'm being told? What happens if I miss out? What happens when I win and wonder if I went too far? And sellers have their own version of that same emotional question or emotional equation. Are we leaving money on the table? Is this buyer serious? Can we trust the feedback? Should we wait? Should we take the deal in front of us? So while our markets may operate very differently, the human elements of negotiation are remarkably similar. Relationships, trust, transparency, fear, emotion, uncertainty, confidence, and the need to make a good decision under pressure. That's why negotiation and negotiation skill transcend every market, every industry, every relationship, no matter which side of the road you drive on. I'm not sure where I'm going with that analogy either. So today, we're going to explore the negotiation architecture of the Australian real estate market, and we'll do that right after these words from our sponsor. So we'll see you back here in 2 shakes of a koala tail. Nope, not working. We'll see you back.
I'm Mark Lawrence, a founding partner of Worldwide Land Transfer. As a former real estate agent and attorney, I understand this business from every angle. We specialize in the complex transactions that define the luxury market: trust, LLCs, estates, and inherited properties. For more information, contact me directly.
From residential and commercial closings to litigation, Romer DeBoss is your full-service real estate law firm. We blend big firm knowledge with boutique-level attention, delivering outcomes that exceed every expectation. Contact us at romerdeboss.com.
I'm Brian Scott Cohen, one of the top loan originators in the country, and the #1 mortgage originator at Guaranteed Rate Infinity. Guaranteed Rate Infinity arguably has the most advanced tech in the industry. Our completely digital loan process makes it easy and efficient for homeowners, from a 15-minute pre-approval to the digital application and through closing. My team and I would love to help you get into the home of your dreams.
All right, our guest today is Haesley Cush, who is the CEO and co-partner of the Ray White Collective. Over the last 30 years, Haesley has sat at the forefront of Brisbane real estate. He's a multi-award-winning auctioneer and columnist for the Sunday Mail and leads the Ray White Collective Group, which has recently been awarded by Ray White as the #1 international business. Haesley began his real estate career in March of 1996, working for his mother at Ray White, Maruka, and since then, Haesley has excelled in real estate sales and auctioneering. He's the only person to win the prestigious REIQ Auctioneer of the Year title every time he's entered in 2002, 2003, and 2008, and he's the first Queensland auctioneer to appear on the Australian television series The Block. Prior to starting Ray White New Farm in 2005, Haesley was the chief auctioneer for Ray White Queensland at the tender age of 22, and also sat on the Queensland board for Ray White Queensland, concentrating on market growth, training, and franchising. Haesley has been involved in an excess of 30,000 transactions, ranging from modest accommodations to some of Australia's most premier real estate. Haesley, I am so thrilled to have you on the podcast. Welcome to Shear Line.
Thank you very much. Pretty excited to be here.
Well, and I should mention, we got your friend here as well, a returning guest, Jared Antin, who is our executive director and the writer of the great blog, New York City Weekly Update blog. So welcome back, Jared Antin. I'm excited to have you along with this conversation to talk to Haesley and find out all about the differences between our markets.
Thank you. Happy to be back here with you.
Yeah. Well, now, I think it's really interesting. We should mention you're from Brisbane.
Yeah.
And we were talking prior to getting started on the podcast and having our intro call. And the only place that I've visited, the only city in Australia that I've been to is Brisbane.
Yeah.
Which I think is a rarity for someone who has been to Australia and only visited Brisbane.
Was that on purpose?
Yeah. Well, that's what it's like. You walk around the streets of Manhattan and you say, oh, g'day, I'm from Australia. And they are Sydney or Melbourne? And you think, no, Brisbane. And what you said, Eric, which was so intriguing to me, is you've only been to Brisbane and Stratty. And Stradbroke Island, if you are any listeners ever want to head down under, the best place to go, and the locals will hate me telling you, is Stradbroke Island. You can be on the beach and see koalas, kangaroos, sharks, whales. Don't see the sharks too much, but it's a remarkable little island just out off Brisbane. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we had an amazing time. We took public transportation to get out there, which was we took a bus to a train to a ferry and had an amazing time on Stradbroke Island. It's a sandbar, right? It's
a big sand island. Yeah, just off the bay. Yeah, incredible place. Really great surf.
Yeah, so that was my experience, and I need to go back. And Brisbane is a beautiful city. So for those of you who want to go to Melbourne or Sydney, that's played out. You need to go to Brisbane.
And buy something while you're there.
Something while you're there. We know the perfect guy. Well, great. I'm so excited to have you here. Let's dive straight into the questions. And for our international audience and for our American audience, can you walk us through the basic structure of a residential real estate sale from the eyes of the seller?
Yeah, I think it's really important for any of your viewers, especially if you're largely based in the Americas, to understand Australians love real estate. We have an absolute passion for property. It's a key part of our wealth creation strategy as a country, and it's largely discussed that we want to get people into the market, we want to get our kids into the market, we want to get them owning real estate. And it's a huge part of every agenda. So in Australia, for the majority of time that Australia's been in its modern world, the sellers are represented by the real estate agent. So buyers are represented by themselves. Yeah. So when a buyer walks to engage with a property, the person they're dealing with is paid by that seller. So the main job for a real estate agent in Australia is to get properties for sale, so to get listings and common language between the two. But in Australia, and I learned this from Jared, we caught up recently in Colorado at a think tank session. Right. And it blew my mind to know the differences between our markets. So sellers in Australia appoint an agent. It's that agent's job to get that seller the maximum possible price. Like any agent worldwide, they've got to act ethically, morally, without misrepresentation. But they're looking to get that seller the maximum possible price. And that's the key job. They've got up to 90 days to sell it. And in a fast-moving market like Australia's been in the last couple of years since COVID worldwide, they're selling in approximately 30 days with multiple buyers wanting to buy, and in most cases, self-represented. But I said the modern era because buyers agents have come into the market over the last sort of 20 years and a lot over the last 5 years.
So There are a few follow-up questions I want to
Must
ask
be
there.
heaps.
One of them, yeah, a lot. I mean, one of them is about a broader question on affordability and whether
Yeah.
you're suffering. You know, you talk about that idea of building generational wealth and the home ownership. I'm wondering. So put the pin in this. If you're finding the same sort of affordability issues that we're seeing in the United States presently, but you talked about having 90 days to sell the property. Is that just the way it is? It's a consistent, you take on a listing, you've got 90 days, or is that a negotiable element to the contract of sale?
So maybe
Or to
state
the
by
exclusive
state,
contract?
there might be some differences, but largely I can go less in Queensland. Let's talk Queensland because that's where I'm from, which is the East Coast. So for those of you not familiar with Australia, lots of states and territories, but on the East Coast, it goes Queensland at the top, which has Brisbane as the capital city, Cairns at the very top. Great Barrier Reef is a part of Queensland, so get down under. Middle is New South Wales. So that's where you've got Sydney, the Harbour Bridge, the Opera House, and then at the bottom, you've got Melbourne. So there, Victoria is the state. So New South Wales, middle, Queensland top, Victoria at the bottom. So I'm in Queensland. And in Queensland, the maximum amount of time that a residential seller can give an agent to sell is 90 days. They can do shorter, so that's the negotiation. Some sellers would. And may, but it's up to the agent and that owner to work out a fair time, but maximum 90 days.
That's by law. That's a
By law in Queensland, yeah. And that's for residential property. If you've got a project, like a new building, it can be extended.
Yeah.
But for the sale of a property, 90 days.
And the sales process or the sales time frame is shorter in part because you have an end, meaning the auction occurs, right? In many cases.
Yeah, so if we do an auction, auctions, so just to give you some lens on this, to show you how popular auctions are in Australia, in Victoria, which would be our auction capital, it would probably reasonable to say, let's iron out any creases of fluctuations, market movement, just iron them out and say over the last 30 years, 90% plus properties would go to sale by auction. And I'm talking inner city. And if you're listening going, yeah, but that's not our market. We've got really expensive properties, not like you guys down in Australia. We're talking properties, you can get a property in the harbour for over 100 million, so in Melbourne, you'd be talking auctions 20 up to 30 million, all the way down to $1 million. But all the way through are going to auction, 90%. In Queensland, maybe 30 to 45, depending on which part of the state it's at. And so in our market, about 40% goes to auction.
Now, when you say goes to auction, within that 90 days, what happens before the auction? Are you trying to sell it privately up until that point?
Such a great question. So in order to auction a property, you've got to find buyers or, who want to buy it. I think that's obvious when you start to contextualize how this works. So if you're not an auction enthusiast, like if you don't understand it, you're just going to say, like Jared said, you're going to have a certain amount of time. But if you're a passionate auction person and you really know them, you get that they're living. So let's say I had a property for auction, or let's say I just list a property. I don't know how I'm going to sell it yet. I've listed it last night, feeling pretty good, wake up today, and the owner says, let's catch up at lunch and work out how we're going to sell it. Let's just assume this world exists. And before lunch, I meet you two. And you two just, happen to say, two independent buyers, hey, I want to buy that property. I heard you've got it coming on the market. We're the neighbours. We want to buy it. Well, theoretically, I could auction that at 4 o'clock that day. I've now got two bidders. I've got a willing seller. I've got willing buyers.
There's no required notice period.
No required amount of time. But so when I say it's living, you need three things in order to really, if you want to really get into the understanding of, you need enough time to gather buyers. You need enough time. I'm going to skip to number 3 and I'll come to number 2 because this is going to be interesting for you. Number 3 is you need enough time for the seller to be ready to accept market value. Now, in a roaring market, they're ready day one. Sometimes they need 3 or 4 weeks to get with buyer feedback to get a feel of what it's worth. But if you bid at an auction, one of the key things, and maybe for your viewers, this will be a hurdle, the buyers, when they're bidding, they need to be what we term as unconditional, which means if they bid and they're the final bid, they're buying it. It is unconditional. So if they find out something about the property they don't like, or they thought they could have the money, but they don't have the money, they're on the hook. They need to settle, find a way, or they could be sued for breach of contract because they have to be unconditional. So an auction is find enough buyers, enough time for those buyers to be unconditional, and enough time for that seller to be ready to sell.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Jared. This
No,
is
go for it.
blowing my mind here. Okay, so
Whole different world.
So to get when they get them unconditional, does that mean the buyer has some ability to do some due diligence before they become unconditional? Like they can have a property inspection, they can do something to uncover any of those issues that might arise.
Yeah.
And then second question.
Yep.
Is there earnest money? So is what is at stake if they are in breach of contract? Their earnest money, a contract deposit, or is it the full amount?
Great question. Okay, let's go back to our example of you two, right? So let's say I say, all right.
I'm gonna beat him in this auction.
Yeah, I know you will. Yeah, I say, all right, boys. You know,
You gotta
let's
get monopoly money.
That's right,
That's
get
his
it going.
outlander.
Exactly.
So I say, all right, boys. You both want to buy it. Spoken to the seller. Let's be fair. We'll auction it at 5 o'clock today.
All right.
Can you both be unconditional? And you say, what does that mean? And I'll say, what it means is this. You can definitely, you've definitely got the money. So either you've got the money in the bank or the approval from the bank or some other way.
So there's no contingency for financing
No contingent.
here.
You've got to have your
Okay.
finance sorted. So in Australia, you can go to the bank, say, here's my details. What can I afford? And they'll say, look, you can afford up to this price. We'll go to that level. They will want to value it,
Sure.
but they will almost always rely on an auction sale.
Because the
as a fair
auction,
way-
so they
fair
don't do
market
the
value.
appraisal necessarily. They trust that if there's more than one, then that's the market.
Correct.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, that's exactly right. So then if you say to me, Eric, I'm good, but Jared, he is no good. He needs to get the buy. Then we can't do it
You
at
don't want
5.
to do a deal with this
Yeah.
guy.
So we need a bit more time. Or if you say, all right, well, I'd like my builder to check it out. If I'm going to be bidding,
Yeah.
I want my builder to check it out. Okay, well, we won't have time by 5. So maybe let's make it Friday. And this is not a usual occurrence. Normally, we're going to say the auction's in 3 weeks. It's 10 o'clock on Saturday. You've got 3 weeks to talk to the bank, talk to your builder, talk to your lawyer, talk to whoever you want. But at 10 o'clock on that Saturday, we're selling.
So even if there's an auction, is there a buy it now option?
So yeah.
Yeah. Is it eBay? Like
Yeah.
eBay
There
buy it
is.
now?
And I think that's important for people to know because put yourself in the mindset of a seller. You'd rather sell it before, like
Right.
if you can get your money, you'd rather sell it before. Probably the buyer would too. So yeah, there's an option to buy it before. But there are different strategies. So the government will auction imagine they probably do that here if they want to dispose of an asset.
Yeah.
But they will not sell it before. They need to prove that they've gone in the whole
Right.
way, given fair market. But if I'm just mum and dad and I'm selling my place and you walk off the street and say, I'll pay you $3 million, and in my head I wanted 2.9, I can take it. I have no obligation to go the full way. Now, a good agent would, before they sold it, go back to all parties, whether that be through phone call, SMS, email, and say, look, something's happened. If you've got an interest, please let me know.
Yeah.
And one of our agents, we're constantly trying to register buyers even 3 weeks out from the auction and saying, look, the advantage of registering now is your knees are under the negotiating table. If someone else tries to put a contract in to stop this auction,
You'll be notified.
we're not going to sell it without talking to you because you're lined up ready to rock. So we'll do it with them. We'd notify them prior. And then you do get like a mini auction,
Yeah.
except it's not live, because Jared's trying to buy it.
Yeah.
Eric wants to stop it. So we're going to go early.
So how do you deal with sellers? So here in our market, right, we have issues where sellers want too much money, right? And
That is universal. We all have that in us.
Okay.
so, we talk about here that, sellers that are going to price things slightly lower because unfortunately, or fortunately, but for better or for worse, auctions here are not as common, right? They are generally correlated with distressed properties for whatever reason. So they're less common. They do happen, but they're more the exception. So how do you manage sellers that want too much money through this auction process, and how do you set sort of that come to market? Are you doing reserve auctions? Are they all no reserve auctions?
It's a really, really important point. We should get that right out of the way.
Yeah. Let's do it.
99.9% are reserved.
Okay.
The clearance rate, so we use this language, it's huge language in Australia, clearance rate. Clearance rate is how many properties are selling at auction. So until 5 or 6 weeks ago, we were clearing 80% plus at auction. Massive clearance rates for Queensland.
What is it? Was that? Does that mean
Prior-
successfully?
Successfully.
Okay.
Up to the day, so prior or under the hammer.
Okay.
But in the last 5 weeks, there's been a change. There's been a change in the landscape down there a little bit. Few reasons for that.
Winter's coming.
winter a little bit. There was some stimulation that was in the market that's moved around, some policy change that's come into market. We've interest rates have risen 3 times. The Reserve Bank's put them up. So those things have sort of changed in the market. Clearance rates dropped for 40%. So now you've got 3 or 4 out of 10 are now selling before or up to auction. So they don't all sell, but they are almost all reserved. So the reason they don't sell is because they don't get the money. I'll just take you on another journey. Let's take away from the two of you. Let's imagine I've got one of your better properties for sale. So right now, actually, I need to say for my accountant, thanks for having me here in Park Avenue on location in New York.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's great to be here. But let's imagine.
Mission accomplished.
Thank you, Tick. Let's imagine we've got a unit or this whole floor's for sale. Like, let's get in the mindset of, oh, yeah, you can't sell them as distressed sale. Let's start to say, oh, yeah, this is a distressed sale. Right, this is a distressed sale. Whatever language you want, there's no price. We're just going to sell it. We're just going to sell it for whatever we get. Whole floor, what are we, between 56th and 57th here?
Yeah.
55th, 56th.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Park Avenue.
Yeah.
Right?
56%.
So just tell me, how many buyers are going to turn up to that distressed sale? I mean, the line's going to start here and go all the way to the financial district, right? It's going to go the whole way down. They're going to line up. And that's not just going to be people wanting a bargain. That's going to be people who want to overpay. And one of the key things that we've learned from auction is competition. The creation of competition is the element of protecting you from underselling. Like it's the way to get maximum price in anything. And we would see it in any market. It's real perceived competition or genuine competition. So some buyers overpay because they think someone's there. Some people pay more because they're genuinely, they see them. But if you were here, full floor, Park Avenue, New York City, you're never underselling at that order. If that's going to auction, you're getting a record price. And so the only reason it's viewed as distressed sale is because of the people that are selling them. And if you wanted to become a specialist, if your company said, we're going to do it, the key is, how do I have buyers? How do I get buyers to believe 3 things? 1, they can afford it. 2, it will definitely sell. And 3, if they're the only one there, it could be value for them. And those 3 things force them to engage. You get enough of those people. You can't undersell with competition.
And I think that we see a very similar thing in our market. I mean, you see some of these multiple bidding scenarios where you've got dozens and dozens of people. In some certain markets, like, Long Island, for instance, I sold a house out there. We had 49 buyers in 2 days, looking at the open house. And we had 11, 12 offers the next day, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't have nearly as many as some properties have, 20, 30 offers. So that competition creates a tremendous amount of urgency, even in the highest and best scenarios that we're talking about. How does that urgency play out when you are actually at a public auction where people are, they set out with goals in mind? They had their maximum, they had their minimum, they have their idea of how that negotiation is going to go. And now all of a sudden they're seeing everyone around them bidding higher and higher and higher. Do you see it get out of control with buyers to the point where, let's say that they can't follow through on what they've agreed to buy?
Yeah, definitely see people go past what they wanted to pay. In fact, if you remember, in Australia, we're there for the seller. So that's our intent. Our intent is maximum possible price. No, we don't see people not complete. They almost can always complete. I think you said at the start of the podcast, I've been involved with tens of thousands of auction. I've called more than most. And the number of...
Sounds like it.
Yeah, I know. It's warming up in the hallway. Plus, I haven't talked like this for 2 weeks.
And we're going to call a mock one here. At the end of the show, I think.
Yes, exactly.
But of all
into a commercial break.
Yeah, why not? But of all of those auctions, the people that haven't completed, and there's probably only a handful of tens of thousands, like sub 10, over 30 years of calling, they've never really been for financial reasons. It's been because they've changed their mind. Some circumstances have changed, or they were just not mentally sound when they did. So I'm talking like less than 10 of 30,000 in 30 years. So it's not common.
Yeah.
People do go in there. The unconditional part of an auction drags the seriousness in. It drags the element of, if I bid on this, I've got to complete. I do lots of auctions for charities. I've had more of them not complete than anything else. And that's with a charity. It's it's just not common. to see that happen.
And it's so different because at least in some markets in the U.S., notably here in Metro New York, our offers are non-binding, right? Nothing is binding here until we sign the contract. So we actually use a disarmament strategy with buyers who are hesitant to put that first offer in by saying, hey, just put it in.
not
Worst
worth the
case, the
paper
seller
it's
says
printed
no,
on.
but let's see
Yeah.
how they come back. So it's very interesting to say, like, that's the way that we can get these first-time home buyers or people that are trying to sort of, get a steal, so to speak, are able to put it in with no risk attached.
Yeah, and you need that. You need to create an emotional attachment, get them involved. We do that in the weeks leading up to the auction.
Right.
So just give us some feedback. Can be an EOI, expression of interest.
Right.
Just fill that in. We'll take it to the owner. Helps the owner get a sight line on what to expect at the auction. And for the buyer, it's just about feedback. And it will, I imagine the language you use, it's either going to buy it, it's going to help them see where they've got to be closer to, or they might come back to you with another price, So,
I just was out with investors in Astoria, Queens, and one of the properties, they had us sign a non-binding letter of intent just to get a sense of where our price would be if we came in. I mean, now they were not willing to show us the property if we weren't at a certain mark.
Fair enough.
But that's what they're looking for. They're looking for some sort of price justification to see where people are going to be bidding once they actually start showing it.
Yeah, good one.
So what's really interesting, right, is we talk about prospecting, right? So I think one of the most shocking thing when Haesley and I were together in Colorado is that they're picking up the phone and they're making, 100 dials a day? Like their entire job is to prospect for sellers, yes, but when they have that listing, they're calling through their Rolodex to try to find the buyer because there's no MLS in the same way. They have two portals. The seller pays the advertising cost. They pay the portal to list it, but then it's their job to go and find as many buyers, convince them to come and tour the home and try to get them auction ready, basically.
Yeah.
Actually, let me give you a couple of things that I didn't realize were shocking, but they were shocking to Jared. So if you want to list your property for sale in Australia, you'll turn up. You're going to sign up with that seller. The agent will charge you roughly 2.5%, right? That's going to be the commission. They're paying the selling agent, the buyer's agent. If they want to engage a buyer's agent, they'll pay separately.
The buyer pays
The buyer
buyer's
pays
agent,
separately, probably less than 5% of cases across the country. In the high end, we sell in the prestige market. Prestige market we would call sort of above 4 to maybe 20 million as a price range. That would probably have closer to 50% buyer agent representation in the high end. So you sign up with me as the vendor, and I'm going to talk you through your marketing costs. So the vendor's going to pay the marketing costs. Now, just to go, we have two major portals, realestate.com.au, largely owned by News Corp, and then domain.com, which has just been bought out by CoStar, right? So but realestate.com.au would be like, be the market leader considerably.
We're going to see how much money CoStar can lose in Australia now.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. And they're going to come in with a real push, a real shake-up.
Yeah.
But we'll see. So just to get an ad in our market on realestate.com will cost you over $3,500 just for that one ad. So you want to get photos, videos, floor plans. You want to get some social media. An average property, our average price might be, say, $1.2 million in our market. That's going to cost you $5,500. Lowest case, we still like to get in the paper. Our top end campaigns could be $20,000 that the vendor's going to pay to market that property.
And just to drive home, so that's the seller paying it, right? So if it doesn't sell, the seller's on the hook for that cost.
Yeah.
And if you draw that comparison to, again, you look at Zillow here or StreetEasy, for instance. So here, the agent or the seller aren't paying. The listing is free to go on, but then the portal is monetizing the buyer leads. So in Australia, the seller is paying, and then all the buyer leads are coming in direct. There's no, lead generation for a buy side.
But buyer leads aren't really worth much for you, right? Because they're just another buyer. They're not somebody who you're necessarily going to turn around to be a client.
Correct. Yeah, that was one of the big things.
They're
that
a
we
customer,
learned.
right?
They're a
Exactly,
customer.
yeah.
And if you think about any shop in Manhattan, like the salesperson's working for the owner of that business. They're going to treat every client that comes through with care, respect, and great customer service, give them a great customer experience so they come back, follow them up if they're really high end, so they keep coming back and buying off them. So it's a nice hand-in-glove relationship that happens there, but representing the vendor and that sort of the buyer, buyer can get representative if they want. And I think one of the things
I want to talk about that. We're going to take a break. If you don't mind going into this break, Can we get a little bit
Yeah,
of
I mean,
your expertise? You got the
You want
hammer.
to hear this?
Yeah.
I want to hear it. Let's go.
All right, so we can start a bit of one, a bit of one, a bit of now, two now, two now, a bit of three, a bit of four, a bit of five, a bit of now, six, a bit of seven, a bit of now, and a bit of eight, a bit of eight, nine.
We got some in the audience.
All right. Thanks so much. We'll be right back with Haesley and Jared right after this.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. We work with Brown Harris Stevens and many other top real estate firms, staging their homes to sell quickly and at the highest price possible. Our staging is affordable without sacrificing quality or design. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
All right, and we are back. Now, let's continue that conversation about buyers and representation of buyers. What kind of research do buyers in your market or in Australia in general, what kind of research can they do? Do they do?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, I want to just go back to that point from the beginning. Property is a huge passion for Aussies. Like, they love it. It is a big conversation at the dinner table about when are you going to buy, what are you going to buy. I don't know whether that is in America. It seems to me like you guys have a bigger understanding of other financial markets. Where I don't think that's as common for us, but property is a big one. So everyone's largely researched. It's if a property comes up for sale in a street, everyone's going to walk through it. We're like a school of fish rolling through that thing, right? So, but we are also pretty bureaucratic. We're rule followers in Australia. So the government does jump in and they're a prescribed document. So if you want to buy a unit, you're going to get a disclosure statement. It's going to tell you how much money's in that body corporate, what are the fees that's going to be attached to it. You can research that. You can get the body corporate minutes for the last couple of years, see what's going on. The contracts themselves, certainly for auctions, but at other properties, those contracts will be on display because different to here, you can just sign a contract as the buyer at an open home. And if the seller signs it, then you're bound. So that will have details on the property. So that's what's in the prescribed documents, but you can jump online. Again, those major portals that I talked to before, they'll list all the sales. The Valuer General's office, I don't know how that terminology translates, but that's the department where all sales are recorded. It takes about 3 months for that data to filter out to public
That's our
view,
acronym,
about the same. Yeah. So, but our portals, agents can nominate live in the moment. So if you sell it yesterday, it's live tomorrow. You sell yesterday, it's live today. And so you can start to see what they're selling for. And research, it lives everywhere, but largely it's going to be the prescribed documents. It's going to be on the portals that you can get there. And again, like I said earlier, the agent will provide information. They've got to act honestly. They can't misrepresent. So if it's, we have a language called stigmatism. If there's a stigma with the property or if there's something that a reasonable person should know. So if a reasonable person will be put off by this, you should let them know. So if it's in a flood area, if there's a train going through it, you know, you need to let them know in advance. And largely we don't have a lot of issues with that. Like people act properly, like I imagine they do here.
Well, there's something that we do that material defects. So you have to disclose any sort of material defects. I in my research I read about underquoting.
Yeah.
Is that something that kind of falls in line with this, with what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's a massive thing in Australia. So think about now, but go back to that auction. So underquoting refers largely to auction. So it's who should investigate this property. Now in Queensland, where I'm from, remember at the top, we do no price. So you don't have to give a price guide in Queensland. You can give no price.
Meaning a non-reserve type
No, meaning
or...
no price indication. So you as buyers say, oh, what do they want? we don't give you any price. We say you figure it out. And there's a lot of language that would, you can imagine jump into the weeds on that.
Is that where they would go to some of these portals and see what has sold, or do they just kind of figure it out on their?
Yeah, and I think we'll probably get to the right spot. But if you go, so I'll come back to that. If you go to New South Wales and Vic, they want a price guide. So when you give a price guide, here's the absolute dangerous water. You go, well, if I give the price guide too high, no one's turning up. If I give the price guide too low,
Well, this is our sales problem here.
this
right?
is the underquoting issue, right? So then they go, oh, great, that's in my range. So I'm going to go and spend money with a builder, spend money with a lawyer, get research, do some due diligence, turn up. If this thing roars, catches on fire, and off it goes, to a record price, the buyer feels hard done by, complains to some department that there was underquoting. They'll investigate it. If they said, where'd you get that price? And it's deemed that, they did shoot low to gather that interest, then they'll be fined. A major issue in Victoria.
And the brokerage gets fined?
The brokerage gets fined, yeah. It's a major issue in Victoria and New South Wales. But buyers, surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, but they love the price guide. They hate the underquoting, but they love the price guide because every buyer just wants to know, can I afford it? Am I wasting my time?
Do I have a chance?
Any
Is
chance.
there a
And
chance?
that's universal. In Queensland, they hate no price guide, but they love that there's no underquoting. So a question I think Jared might have asked me, Erica might have been you. So what does this lead to? It leads to exactly what should happen. The buyer must research. And if you're going to spend even just like you think of the cheapest amount of money you could pay for a property. I don't know what the cheapest is around here, but let's say it's $500,000, but 500 grand. That's still $500,000. You should be researched. You shouldn't be relying on some price quote. You should go and get research. So in Queensland, certainly most Australian markets, if they lose confidence because of underquoting or there's no price, they do what they should have always done. Get their own opinion, invest what they're prepared to invest on a bit of due diligence. Most sellers will now provide a building inspection. And like we're living in 2026, you can rely on a building inspection in 2026. We live in a litigious world. No one can just make up what's out there, So they can have a look at that building inspection, talk to the bank. The exposure to cost becomes really minimal then. Turn up. If you buy it, great. If you don't, you've now worked out exactly what that property is worth to the absolute second in time. And so, research is so important for buyers, regardless of what the agent provides. You should go and do your own work on that.
You want to fill in? Go ahead.
Well, I got a
Fill in.
question.
Yeah.
So a buyer there, and I guess this is the difference to your point before, and you said that on the higher end, they're more likely to hire a buyer's agency, right? Because if they're buying a more expensive property, we can assume they have more disposable income and they're going to delegate it, right? But you're saying that at the lower end, the people are going to do their own research because they may not have as much liquidity to be able to hire that person for themselves. Is that?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of those. They've got the time to do a bit more research. If you're a first home buyer, this is getting into the market. Well, I don't think whether you be in Manhattan or Maruka, it's. I never thought I'd say those two.
Manhattan and Maruka. I should have done that at the beginning. Manhattan and Maruka. I missed it.
The getting into the market that's the biggest hurdle to jump. The getting into the hard part. Once you're in, you get equity, you get capital growth, and you can start to leverage that if you need to. So getting into the hardest part. So that's when you're going to be really researching. Time starts to get away from you. Sometimes time is a big part of it. Also, getting it wrong costs a lot more. I mean, percentages in actual dollars are more in the high end. So you do rely on some professionals to do the work in that space. Buyer's agents as well. We as agents, now you put your hat back on, we're working for the seller.
Right.
So our first call, if we're going to list a high-end property, is to our buyer's agents because they're working with a pool of high net wealth buyers who want to buy. They want to buy something before it hits the market if they can. We use the term off market. I think you use something similar sometimes here. And if they can get in, they're not always trying to buy under market. They'd rather buy without competition at a slower
They
pace.
might be willing to pay above market or whatever market
Whatever
is.
market is, yeah. And so for a number of reasons, whether it's for a more moderately paced negotiation, whether it's for making sure that someone else does the work on the price or the due diligence is why they lean into them. And again, getting the price wrong, if you're spending $10 million at 10%, $1 million, 500 grand, 50 grand. So, not as big a pain.
So I want to ask you a kind of a challenging question because this is something that we deal with here as well. You talk about people doing their due diligence, knowing knowing homes, knowing the market. This is something that's generational. Everybody knows when the house on the block is coming available. Why then do sellers need to hire a real estate professional? Why can't they all just be for sale by owners, knowing that no matter whether they have an agent or not, they're going to be a line of people waiting to purchase their home?
Yeah, it's the big challenge. It's the reason we want to know, for us as professionals, how we're going to keep our jobs, especially in a world of AI. But I think the first fundamental, and it's not the proudest fundamental, but Jared hit it like a nail on the head at the beginning. We as humans have a amazing ability to out-enthuse even the greatest market of all time, So
Right.
sometimes the price that we would put on that property would be above what somebody would pay if it was left up to us. Then there's another basic fundamental reality, which is the longer a property sits on the market, the more it starts to psychologically depreciate to buyers. So I'm on the market for a day, I'm hot property, I'm on the market for 90 days, something's wrong with me. And if something was wrong with me was just an enthusiastic seller, it starts to erode at my value. So I think the fundamental pillar at the core of all of us is we're all a bit greedy deep down. And agents help us get a sight line on price and our effort.
Yeah.
The evidence that we put in of our effort can help an owner soothe on maybe that price wasn't there. The second thing is we can negotiate. So we can
Amen.
help an owner maximize.
I was
And
hoping you would say.
yeah, well, I mean, it's
The key word.
It's true, right? Like we charge 2.5%. I've been doing this, like I've been running around the bootlaces of agents since I was 10 years of age. So I've been down on Canal Street with my 10-year-old. He calls it Deal Town. We've been
Deal
working
Town.
all week.
Eric, you need to do a show down there live.
Live,
live,
That's great
yes.
negotiating. And
right.
I back myself that
Yeah.
we can get a seller 1%, 2%, 3%. We're charging 2.5%. Thirdly, especially where we're from, we're still doing the contracts. So there's a huge weight of responsibility on the agent's shoulders legally in order to get that document right, to protect that seller. And we're going to hold that legal burden if there's a mistake there. So you start to add these layers to a vendor for the 2.5% that we're probably going to offset with a higher price anyway. Mate, do the job. Plus, we don't charge them if we don't get their money. Like, we're free. We're a full commission business.
Yeah.
Sure, they're paying for the marketing, but we're working for free if they choose not to sell it. And we don't bank on selling them all. So we'll work for free a lot. Right. And I think that's the same here, right?
But
Yeah.
the difference here is that the brokerage, right, is carrying the marketing costs.
Yeah.
So, if it doesn't
Yeah, there are
sell,
sunk costs.
not only do we not get paid, we're actually negative because we've spent the money to market the property. So you actually have a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, we do, in
Because
that regard.
our sell side commissions are roughly the same, right? And then there's generally an offer of compensation to a buyer's agent. So it costs the seller arguably more here to sell in some cases, but they're not assuming any of the risk. So it's a risk transfer. And
Absolutely.
the interesting piece is that, Australia and that model was widely referenced and quoted in the commission suits a couple years ago. And it conveniently left out the fact of this risk transfer and who's on the hook for, if it doesn't sell or if the seller, overprices. So I think that's an interesting piece around the equalizer, that if a seller in your market is trying to ask for a number that doesn't make sense, they can do it, but they're going to be out their $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 in marketing costs for it. So there's a real loss factor, a real expense that, while that same loss about the property getting stale exists here because human nature is human nature, I don't think the seller actually quantifies the loss in our market as much because there's not an actual dollar that's tangible. It's not like I have $10 and I got to give you $1 every day it doesn't sell. In your market, that's exactly what's happening.
Big time. Yeah.
And to add a layer to that, I mentioned sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
There in our market, you think about agents spinning their wheels. Like, as you said, there are properties that don't sell. So it's not like you sell them all. Here, you have an added layer. You're assuming the risk as an agent, as a brokerage. So what are you willing to take? What are you willing to accept? How long, how far are you willing to take this in order to chase the dream or the hope that will actually sell? So you have agents who actually ride this whatever this was, not a wave, it's an opposite of a wave for as long as they can, knowing that this is probably never going to happen for them.
Yeah, so
whereas
if
you
they
can
take
cut
it
bait
at a-
and go.
You take it at a high price. You're shelling out your dough, getting it online. If it doesn't sell, you lose your loot.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's why you set your price, and if they take it. And how long do you, I mean, I know your listeners already know, but just from my intel, how long do you sign up your agencies? Are they infinite? Or?
Well, I'll tell you from a negotiation coach perspective, that's an anchoring point, right? I want to have as long an exclusive agreement as I can.
Yeah.
I'll be willing to pull back on that as an exchange for something of other value that I want to get, staging, pricing, something like that.
Yeah.
But we don't have a cap on how long we can do that.
Yeah,
So I'll ask for 9 months or I'll ask for 6 months. And will I be willing to do less? Yeah, it depends on the deal, depends on the situation.
Yeah, good one.
But that's a negotiable element here.
And
But
that's a
that-
big part of our staging as well. That's all rounded out in that upfront cost to the vendor.
But yes, traditionally our exclusives will run it for a longer duration than yours because of that assumed risk and needing that time, because we don't have, sort of a defined thing. We're saying, okay, in 60 days, we're going to auction, right?
Yeah.
In the auction approaches that exist here and that I've been part of for non-distressed property, there's generally a 45 to 70 day sort of lead up to do exactly what you described in your process.
And I'd say to get back to that, our most common is about 4 weeks. So 3 weeks of marketing, auction in the 4th week.
And by the way, the interesting piece to draw the parallel, if a company was using a auction here, generally our auction fees are a bit higher, than the cost in Australia. But the difference is that the buyer is usually paying that VIG. So whatever they auction out to, there's then a buyer premium on top that's, let's say, 5 to 6, 7% that then gets split in part to a buyer's agent if there is one, in part, to the auction company then for their service. And if the seller was already using an agent, the seller then owes the listing agent the commission. So it's interesting, though, that the buyer is paying the VIG. But again, it just reduces arguably the amount the buyer may be willing to pay the property. So it all nets out.
I mean, that's the thing. The buyer's always paying, right?
Right.
It's all going to be added on top, right?
Correct.
Well, and I'm going to ask you one last question before we head out here. This is amazing. We didn't even get back into affordability and the issues that you might be facing, but we'll have to have you back again the next time you cycle through. Next time you're here,
That's right.
We'll have you back on. But from a negotiation coach standpoint, obviously you've been in this business a long time. Negotiation seems to be in your blood. It's something that you not only enjoy but do very, very well. What is that training like in Australia for real estate professionals? Is it something they pick up as they go? Is it something that's brokerage by brokerage, or is there actual real training going on for people to understand the process of negotiation?
Yeah, such a great question. So definitely brokerage to brokerage. A lot of it by osmosis. So main way agents are now coming in is starting as what we call associates, so like maybe like an apprenticeship style way in, up through a lead agent and then out. I was an agent and then I was a full-time auctioneer and trainer for a long time, so there's great luxury of training full-time in 2 lots of 5-year stints, so for a decade. So we have a lot of training inside our group. But no, as a industry in Australia, there's not a lot of specific training on the negotiation. When I heard about your podcast, I loved it. I think it's such a wonderful thing to be talking specifically to the negotiating point. We use the analogy of surfing quite a lot. Everyone wants to get into real estate and it's like they want to surf. They say, I want to be a surfer. If you take a 2 or 3 hour surf, like if you're out surfing for 2 to 3 hours, the actual number of minutes you're surfing is like single digits. You're actually surfing for like 5 or 6 minutes.
It's like the amount of action in our baseball game that we saw.
Yeah, that's right. Most of your 3 hour surf, you're paddling, duck diving and trying to stay alive. and I think negotiating is like the stand-up surfing part of our industry. Of all the stuff that you do, you just want to get to that sharp end of our business to negotiate. That's why I love auctions, because auctions are just live negotiations. Yeah. So I have this sheer joy of spending so much time in that space. And auctions, a lot of it's live, sort of, $1 million bid an hour, a bit of 2, a bit of 3, a bit of 4. But sometimes you've got to pause. And you might pause when the reserve is, say, 4.5 million, but your bid's at 4. And you'll walk over to the buyer and you'll say, hey, look, 4 million's not enough. Looking for more. You'll use some negotiating language using like anchors. Wow. And remember, the reserve it's kind of like the owner's minimum expectation. Yeah. That's not your target. So you might set a higher anchor, right? Yeah. And we came in here, ideally they would have loved a number like this number up here. My question is, would you pay it? No. Well, how close can you get? And we're not going to, why would we bid on ourselves? Well, we're going to pass it in otherwise. And if we pass it in, you lose all this transparency. And if we can get some common ground, maybe they'll move down to your number. Then we're going to reopen the auction. If someone else bids, well, you could have safely assumed that person was waiting for you after the auction anyway. And if they bid, you're going to get another shot to bid against them. And you wouldn't have had that after the auction. And if you think about the vendor right now, are they going to be more interested in moving now during their auction or later? Well, they're going to be more interested now because they get the chance for more. But if not, they get the comfort of knowing that was the best price. And I love that negotiating part. And so you see that live, and the buyer will likely move and the seller will probably likely move. And if we can re-engage, I get back out the front. Right, we've had an agreement. Buyer's now at $4.5 million. We're on the market. And on the market is a term that we as auctioneers, it's not law. It's just a colloquialism that we use. We say we're going to sell from this point forward. It's going to sell. And it's like our trigger of saying
you hit
we've hit the reserve.
Whatever
right?
we get, we get.
Yeah, but it's not a legal term. It's just something that we use when we say we're going to go now. I don't love it, but I use it. But it's kind of like this. It's an evil necessity. I'd rather we could just sell. We say it's on the market, it's going to sell, and if there's more, we get more. And I think, Eric, you asked me, how does it feel for a buyer when the bid goes past what they wanted to pay? I think everyone's got a plan until someone else bids past them, and then kind of all bets are off. It's like that famous Mike Tyson expression, you know?
So you got to trust your gut.
Yeah.
Right.
And if someone bids past you, it hurts a little bit, but it also validates that you were wrong. You know, someone said it was worth, someone's about to pay more. So by bidding, whatever you pay is a little bit more than what they thought it was worth, not what you thought it was worth. And each time you bid, it validates a new level. And then when it sells, you got the comfort that someone else thought it was worth approximately the same value. And I heard an expression years ago, which was, if you want to buy real estate, buy good stuff. Because for the same reasons that you wanted to buy it, someone will want to buy it when you sell it.
Right.
You know? And so, yeah, look, the negotiating that we do, again, agency to agency, we spend a lot of time on it. But you're negotiating with everyone now, you know, like the seller to get your commission and the marketing that they're going to use, the buyer to engage with you, and the vendor to realize the value of their home, and then all the nuances of conditions along the way. Yeah.
It's fascinating. Another conversation definitely needs to be had. But as we leave here, I would love for you to tell our audience, where can they find you? Where can they learn more about you? If they're in the Australian market, where can they find you?
Okay, so we've got about 200 people in our group. We've got 7 locations in the inner city of Brisbane, which is in Queensland, Australia. Our group headline is called Ray White Collective. We're made up of a number of Ray White offices. So Ray White is a franchise that started 125 years ago in Queensland. So my name's Haesley Cush, and I suppose you can find me, I think my Instagram is @Haesley. I'm one of the lucky ones with a funny name. My business partner, he's the selling agent in our group, Matt Lancashire. Matt sells, he'd be one of the most prominent prestige salespeople in Australia. He's got a big following online. People love to see his great properties as well.
Oh, great.
And we've got lots of stuff, you know, we've got all the social media things that you would expect from a modern industry. But I was so thrilled to meet Jared when we were in Colorado. I'm a big fan of real estate over here. I love what you guys do. I love the differences. And Eric, I'm a new big fan of your show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to be on
Thank you.
here.
The new best episode. So.
Eric's just gone global.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right. From Manhattan to Eureka.
That's right. Oh, thank you, Haesley. It's such a pleasure to have you. And Jared, where can our audience find you as well?
Yeah, right here at Brent Harris Stevens, but online at Jared Antin on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And as Eric said, I write a weekly, monthly, and seasonal market update, bringing you the so what about what's happening with New York City real estate. So like and subscribe.
Actually, I should say, because I get in trouble from our social media people down under, they do channel a lot through Instagram. So at RW New Farm is probably our biggest social media, or at RW Collective.
We'll put that in the show notes
Thank
for
you,
the
Ty.
podcast. Yeah, thank you. So Haesley and Jared, this has been an incredibly valuable conversation because it reminds us that negotiation is never just about what happens at the offering table. It's shaped long before that by the rules of the market, access to information, representation, price analysis, public competition, transparency, trust, and the emotional pressure people feel when it's time to make a decision. What I love about looking at the Australian market is that it forces us to see our own assumptions a little more clearly here in the US and in whatever your market you're in. The structure may be different, but the human beings are familiar. Buyers still want confidence. Sellers still want certainty. Everyone wants the useful information. They want trust. They want the feeling that they made a good decision that they can live with. So here are 3 takeaways that you can implement immediately. Takeaway number 1, identify the negotiation architecture before you negotiate. Before you talk strategy, understand the system you're operating inside. What are the rules? What is the information that's available? Who represents whom? Where is the pressure coming from? And where is the power being created? If you don't understand the structure around the negotiation, you may misread the behavior inside the negotiation. Number 2, treat information as negotiation fuel. People don't just need information to make decisions. They need information to feel safe, confident, clear when making decisions. The better you are at helping buyers and sellers understand what we know, what we think we know, and what we need to know, the better you are at helping them make confident decisions. And number 3, protect trust during moments of pressure. Whether it's an auction, a multiple offer situation, price reduction, or a difficult negotiation, pressure changes behavior. Urgency can create clarity, but can also create panic. Your job as a professional is not simply to use pressure, but to manage it responsibly with transparency, preparation, honest communication, and focus on people making decisions they can live with after the adrenaline wears off. In the end, thousands of miles of ocean separate our markets, but the human side of negotiation is remarkably consistent, no matter where you hang your oilskin duster and your bush hat. All right, I'm done. All right. People need clarity, trust, advocacy, and help making sense of imperfect information under pressure. And that's where great professionals create value. And that's the Shear Line for today, everyone. Remember, you can support this show by following us, subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just go to getmorenetwork.com, and there you can check out all of the wonderful shows on the More Network, including past episodes of Shear Line. You can find me all over Instagram at archway.partners, as well as on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Eirik the Expert. You can contact the Excelsior team by going to bhsusa.com, and you can connect with my company, Archway Partners Coaching, by going to archwaypartnersinc.com. And remember, everyone, there's a key for every lock, but it's the right combination of grooves, cuts, and teeth that lift the pins and create the shear line. Until next time, keep turning curiosity into connection, mystery into mastery, and keep unlocking what's possible. We'll see you next time, everybody.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business, and it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.